Well, hello there, and long time no see. Welcome back to another episode of TA with MK. My name is MK, and it's been a few days since I made a video. The weather's been nice. Obviously, summer is upon us, and I've had a lot of yard work to catch up on. And honestly, this is my first summer in 15 years that I haven't had to leave for my normal job that I've been doing for the past 15 years. And so normally my parents and or some neighbors help take care of my yard and things while I'm gone. And to be honest with you, I know yard work's not exciting for most people, but it's been kind of exciting to have something to do that I haven't done for 15 years. So I've been trying to catch up on a lot of that, but we are going to get back into making our daily videos as promised. In today's video, I'm going to discuss primarily Bitcoin dominance, just because that's going to dictate a lot of how we trade our altcoins, combined with Bitcoin, obviously, in the coming days to weeks. So we'll discuss that for the majority of the video. Then we'll dive a little bit into the SPX, what it did today, and Bitcoin and what it did today, and why Bitcoin is reacting the way it is based on what the S&P 500 is doing, right? So we're going to talk about those in today's video. And if you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. All right, so let's start out talking about Bitcoin dominance. And the reason I want to start today with Bitcoin dominance is that's going to dictate our strategy going forward for the next few weeks to months. And the reason I say that is if you don't already know or don't follow my channel or don't know a lot about Bitcoin dominance or crypto, Bitcoin dominance is basically in a nutshell as simple as this. If it's going up, that's bad for altcoins, and if it's going down, that's good for altcoins. I will put a link in the description to my video. It's about 15, 17 minutes long, something like that, that dives deep into Bitcoin dominance and explains the ins, the outs. That way you can wrap your head around it. I had a member of my Telegram group message me yesterday asking a little bit more details on Bitcoin dominance. He knew the basic of it, which is what I just explained. That generally when it's going up, that's bad for altcoins, and generally when it's going down, that's good. But, you know, there's a little more to it. There's times when you can kind of foresee a dump coming for Bitcoin and altcoins, and there's times that you can foresee altcoins staying stable while Bitcoin goes up, and so on and so forth. There's about 8 different scenarios, actually, that Bitcoin dominance can kind of tell you. And so it's something that we track all the time as we're trading altcoins and watching Bitcoin, just to give us clues as to what to expect as far as altcoins trading goes, right? So we're on the weekly chart. We are zoomed out with the lines on just to kind of make it clean. Ignore all of this mess over here. Once I zoom in, it'll make more sense. But I just want to show you real quick before we dive into a little more zoomed in price action for the Bitcoin dominance. Just this level that I've labeled over here as weekly resistance. With line on, you can see there's a touch here, and there was a big rejection, right? You had a touch here, big rejection. You had this touch here, big rejection. And these rejections are basically altcoin seasons. Anytime this is trending down for an extended period of time, which on the weekly chart, that would have been an extended period of time, you know, that was good altcoin trading, right? Same here, rejection, and then same here, rejection. And then we basically were forming more or less this descending channel, right? This downward channel where we had touches on the top 3 times, touches on the bottom essentially 3 times. And this is a pattern in itself that has a 68% chance of breaking to the upside at some point. Well, we were tracking this weeks ago, probably even for the last couple months on my channel, actually, anticipating the potential breakout, which could kind of end or spell doom for the altcoins in the short to mid to maybe even, you know, longish term, bear market style, if you want to call it. And that's exactly what happened. It did break out. I don't even know if we ever officially got a retest, at least not on the weekly. I'm sure if you zoomed into 1 hour or 4 hour or even maybe a daily time frame, there may have been a retest. But at any rate, it's been trending higher ever since, which obviously is the reason that, oh, well, besides Bitcoin pulling back, which is the obvious, on top of that, this trending higher has meant that the altcoins have been hit even harder. Another way of putting this in a nutshell is that if Bitcoin dominance is trending higher, it just means that its percentage of the market cap overall is going up, regardless of whether the market cap is going up or down itself as far as money goes. You know, if it's going from 100 billion to 100, you know, to 90 billion, which is actually a drop, as long as the percentage of that 90 billion for Bitcoin is higher than it was when it was at 100 billion, this is going up. Its dominance within the market is going up. It just means people are, if they're holding on to anything, they're holding on to Bitcoin. They're not, as likely to be holding on to their altcoins. So now we'll zoom in real quick. So now we find ourselves zoomed into the Bitcoin 4-hour chart. And this is just something we've been tracking for the last couple weeks. First, we had this potential rising channel back here, right? And it broke to the upside, which was against the odds. Basically, anytime you have a pattern break the opposite direction that it should statistically, you see a lot bigger move out of it. So, right, so we had this rising channel, and that wasn't really a super valid pattern. It really only had 2 touches here and 2 touches here. So it was just something I was tracking, but more or less it broke to the upside, right? And now it's been kind of forming another rising channel, which is another pattern that has a 68% chance of breaking to the downside. However, these patterns right now on Bitcoin dominance have been breaking against the odds, right? And what all that really means is that people's attention is more on Bitcoin, right? Even if it's pulling back or going up, most of the attention in the market right now is on Bitcoin. And the reason for that is there's a lot of fear in the market. There has been ever since Bitcoin pulled back from its all-time highs and then lost 50K and then lost 40K, dropped all the way to as low as like 26K or 27K or whatever that was recently, a few weeks back. So people's attention when they are deciding to trade is Bitcoin because it's a lot less risky than the rest of the altcoins, right? Still super risky, as far as the stocks in general go, but a lot less risky than altcoins, right? So that's kind of where we're at. And that's just what we've been dealing with, right? We've been waiting for the little bit of moments we get where this breaks down and gives altcoins a little bit of relief. Otherwise, you're just looking either to short the altcoins if this breaks higher, or you're just looking to get out of your positions altogether, right? So now we're tracking this rising channel here, but the problem is as we zoomed out before, remember how Bitcoin dominance, I had that weekly zone, which is all this blue stuff, all these blue lines right here. Well, even though this is still in this rising channel, which has a 68% chance of breaking to the downside, the bigger concern is it's already broken above and retested twice, essentially a double bottom of this weekly resistance. So if it's going to flip this weekly resistance, you have to understand that any level that gets flipped, which basically a flip is just a break and a retest, push higher, or vice versa, break down, bearish retest, push lower. But anytime you have a level that gets broken, you have to think of it in terms of the lower the time frame, the less significant that break is. And what I mean by lower the time frame is you'll have levels that you might zoom in on a 15-minute chart that have been being interacted with for a day and a half, and it breaks that. Well, the significance of that's far less than seeing a level like this that had 3 major touches on a weekly time frame. The 3 previous times leading to giant rejections, which was good for altcoins and essentially led to what we call altcoin seasons. And then now, the opposite of that, you have it breaking above and retesting, not once, but twice, right? This weekly resistance. And that's a cause for concern because now that would be the opposite. And it'd be what we would call Bitcoin season, right? And now we're just going to hop over real quick and end the video by talking about the SPX, what it did today, and Bitcoin. So we're over here on the Bitcoin 4-hour chart, and this is just your super quick kind of update on what Bitcoin's doing and honestly why I think Bitcoin's doing what it's doing, right? So essentially, we had this top from the end of May where Bitcoin was able to pump back up to around 32,300, right? So it topped right there. Pull back. Now this little triangle that I've drawn, this is just an idea I'm tracking. It's not a real valid pattern at this point. The top, if it gets rejected right now where it's at, then it will be pretty valid because you'd have 1, 2, and essentially a third touch. The bottom trend line, not super valid. Just an idea I'm tracking to kind of give me an idea that if it does continue to consolidate sideways, usually these patterns have an apex, which is the end, or they'll break out between 70 and 75% fall. So that I can have at least a time range to start targeting a move out of this to the upside or downside. But anyway, what I was going to get at is that what we've been having happen is we've had this high, then it came back down. We had this little dump from a couple days ago. Actually, I think it was yesterday. We had this little dump because this ended up confirming a lower high. We were talking about that in the group that you needed to have a higher high here to see some more upside, bounce on upside. We got a pullback, but it still put in basically a double bottom back down here, same area, the bottom of the range, if you will. Now we're just at the top. We're a little bit lower than this, but the problem is if we don't break out now, then we're probably going to see another breakdown, right? just temporarily most likely. But we're going to move over to the SPX chart in a minute and explain why I think that we're getting rejected here again, and why there's a likelihood that we'll at least trend back down and either test this area at about 30,700. More likely as we come back down here and probably test somewhere back around 30K. But if you go over to the SPX, which this is the SPX 4-hour chart, it's obvious why Bitcoin's struggling to break through resistance, because the SPX, which we've been talking about, is at its own key level of resistance. We're back here, it was support, 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 right? Led to bounces, 1, 2, 3 bounces. Here it was support temporarily. Eventually it lost it here, bearish retest, and that led to its downtrend. And now it's just kind of in this consolidation, bull flag, channel, whatever you want to call this, where it's been rejected once, twice, and it closed today right below that resistance. So the question is, do we see another rejection tomorrow when the SPX opens back down to this trend line? Are we finally able to break? And the question, or not the question, but the reason Bitcoin's struggling is because it's waiting on the SPX. The market is still very uncertain. There's also some Fed news coming out. I think that was actually today, so I might have to share that on my Twitter. I haven't really looked into what the results were. It was either today or tomorrow here in the US. It's the 7th here in the US, but I know there's some news that people were anticipating would affect the market. I've always been very transparent on my channel that I'm not the greatest when it comes to following the political or economical news, but I'm realizing I need to more as the time goes forward, especially with the inflation stuff going on and just the uncertainty in the markets. So if it did come out, it must not have been too bearish, because we obviously didn't go down today, we went up. But it may be that it's still coming out, and that's why we're sitting at this resistance. But more or less, the key is, until this breaks out, it's going to be hard to expect upside out of Bitcoin, right? So that's what we'll be tracking over the next, 24 hours, basically, is to see what the SPX does. In my Telegram group, we've mainly just been trading some of the lower cap coins, the small caps. And the reason for that is they're not as affected right now by the Bitcoin moves. It's just, you see the Bitcoin dominance, that we talked about in the first video, how that's been trending up, and, if it's trending up, altcoins don't move as well. When I say altcoins don't move as well, I'm referring more to the mid and large cap coins, where it takes a lot of money to move them. In your smaller cap coins, it doesn't take very much money. So they are higher risk, but you could still make some really good short-term trades on those, just because if you find the right chart, it doesn't take much money to move them. And so forth. So that's something I'm going to discuss in tomorrow's video, is the strategy we've been using in our group to trade some of these lower cap coins. It's what I've been calling right now the 4-hour 200 MA season is what I've been calling it, because that's kind of what we're experiencing on those charts. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. And I do think that's a good place to leave it off for today. If you guys are liking the content, please leave me some comments in the comments section. Let me know what you're liking. Maybe let me know what you'd like me to talk about in future videos. I've mentioned this quite a few times, so I will mention it again, but I have been working on a bunch of training videos. I've got about 4 or 5 that are like halfway done. I don't know why I don't just finish one, but I've kind of been hopping around. But anyways, those will be coming out in the coming days. Just some videos going over some more topics. Because right now, as we're still in somewhat of a bear market, obviously, and we could be for the foreseeable future, this is the time to spend learning so that eventually you can capitalize when the market turns super green again. And again, if you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. It's